1.3 billion people worldwide live in unsafe physical environments. Toxic waste and contaminated elements in the air, water, and soil can pose major health problems.
This area is surrounded by 3 major highways. There's so much traffic that comes through there that, asthma rates are off the charts in this area. It affects the water quality, the air quality, and, so it really affects people's lives here.
In New York, the third on a list of 50 U.S. cities with the largest number of individuals exposed to dirty air, the South Bronx is considered an environmental justice community.
Communities that we're talking about are environmental justice communities, communities that have inequitable burdens, that are traditionally low-income, people of color, indigenous people. Environmental justice communities are communities that have been traditionally neglected.
According to Crystal, the initiative to redevelop these communities and make them more environmentally safe must come from the grassroots level, or their needs won't be considered, and displacement will occur.
Neighborhoods are being redeveloped, but they're not accounting for the local needs and the local people developing local economies as well. And so once it's developed, the value goes up, and then people that were there are displaced.
In the case of youth ministries, they work to empower these communities and give them a voice to make their demands. One of their projects is fighting for a clean river.
The Bronx River hadn't been used in years. It's contaminated.
This community has been cut off from the river, and we don't have parks along the river as other neighborhoods do. So that was kind of the initial, this project was starting to acquire lands along the banks of the river so that they can develop them into parks.
But it is not just about a healthier environment or a nicer neighborhood. It is also about empowering and creating opportunities for the community.
I don't think a job can be green unless it is helping the local economy. What we try to do is keep on top of trainings that are going on in the neighborhoods for more workforce development and ensuring that these jobs go to the people that need them.
To accomplish these goals, they are working to acquire city and federal funds that have been allocated to the development of greener communities.
There are funds out there. What we want to ensure is that they're distributed to communities that are plagued with health crisis like asthma, or have been traditionally neglected and have more of the environmental burden, especially with the economic stimulus money out there. Green is a buzz out there.
Well, before we start our discussion on the wider topic, we wanted to talk about environmental justice communities because we believe that the Hispanic community has a lot at stake in the issues of environment. Let me start with you, Javier. The Sierra Club was one of the first environmental organizations that started to embrace this topic. Why?
Well, and not one of the ones to embrace the topic, but probably the first one that actually started talking to the Latino community about it. Latinos suffer disproportionately from the degradation of the environment. According to a Sierra Club study released last year, 66% of us live, work, or study close to or dangerously close to a toxic site. Also, about 80% of us live in the counties in the country with a worse air quality. So what we're saying here is that the shift to a new economy, to a new economy of clean and renewable energy, is not only to curb our oil addiction and also to curb the gases that cause global warming. It's also it will be a radical change in order to eliminate the pollution that is making so many people sick, especially Latinos.
Patrick, the concept of environmental justice community is relatively new, even though it has some years now. Does it exist really? Is there an environmental injustice that affects more the minority groups or Hispanics, Black Americans, or Indians in the United States?
It's generally acknowledged, just not in the United States, but around the world, that people who are poorer are less resilient and do not accommodate environmental change very, very well. So the key on this issue is to have economies that develop to the point that poverty is, if not eliminated, certainly not as common, and then people are able, A, to deal with environmental change, and B, to, in fact, clean their environments. It's clear around the world, or around any neighborhood, that the more affluent you are, the cleaner things tend to be.
So this is a real issue in your opinion?
It's an economic issue. I don't try not to view it through the prism of race. I think it's clearly an economic issue.
Daron, some argue that it is not an economic issue only, that there is also racial discrimination here. What is your opinion?
Well, historically in the United States, I think it's pretty clear there is a racial aspect as well in terms of the siting of polluting facilities such as highways, but also in terms of the siting of landfills and toxic waste dumps. I think there's pretty good research that's been done on that. Thankfully, there are also steps being taken to remedy it, and it's partly because the environmental groups out there, the mainstream groups, as well as the Environmental Protection Agency, have finally realized that this is a problem in terms of a disproportionate effect of environmental pollution, and that it needs to be dealt with. And yes, it's about income, but I think there's also pretty clear evidence that it's also about race.